All right, friends, 3 very entertaining things just occurred on a new Fox News segment that I've got to share with you. First, a former top Trump economic advisor publicly called out the Trump administration for their incompetence. Number 2, the MAGA Fox News host hosting this particular panel visibly died inside, literally had her head in her hands as she recounted the brutal results of a Fox News poll against Trump. And number 3, a liberal economist got to explain to both of them and Fox News' viewers the disaster that is the Trump tariff policy. Chef's kiss, it's glorious. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got several clips to play in this video. To tee this up, I just want to remind you that Fox is in deep shit with Trump right now. Number 1, they had that brutal Fox News poll, which we're going to get more mileage out of. Again, can't wait for you to see this clip. Number 2, they have been dedicating increasing clips and segments to calling Trump out on his disastrous 100 days. And number 3, Trump is publicly targeting them for prosecution based on election fraud, as I've explained in a previous video. Not good. This is going to make things considerably worse. Now, before I play the first clip of the former top Trump economic advisor, I just want to set the stage as to who this man is, so you know he is no rhino. He loves Donald Trump. He literally wrote a book bragging, just effusively praising Trump's economic policy called Trumponomics, Inside the America First Plan to Revive Our Economy. He wrote that in 2018. Okay, but then, so you might think, okay, sure. You know, he was once a big Trump guy, but he has since, he's since become a liberal communist Marxist. Not so. He literally wrote a book last year, September of last year, called The Trump Economic Miracle. The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. Okay, so this guy, even though he's no longer a top Trump economic advisor, he's still a Fox News contributor. He is still a Trump fan. He's a MAGA fanboy, loves Donald Trump, which makes it all the more hilarious that he's on Fox News calling out the Trump administration for their legislative incompetence. So we're going to play this clip and unpack it together.
Moment Republicans are gearing up to push through this big tax bill. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former Obama economic advisor Robert Wolf and former Trump economic advisor Steve Moore. Steve, I'll start with you first. I mean, I can't imagine there's anything bigger than this as it pertains to the economy and Republicans and policy. From now, President Trump is set to meet with House Speaker Mike Johnson. It comes as House Republicans are gearing up to push through this big tax bill. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former Obama economic advisor Robert Wolf and former Trump economic advisor Steve Moore. Steve, I'll start with you first. I mean, I can't imagine there's anything bigger than this as it pertains to the economy and Republicans and policy right now. What say you?
Yeah, Sandra, there is no room for failure here, because if this doesn't happen, if they hit a snag and they can't get it done, you're talking about probably the biggest tax increase in American history, and Republicans would kiss goodbye any chance of holding on to Congress in that situation. So they got to get it done. I'm a little frustrated, frankly, Sandra, that it hasn't been done already. It's not really that complicated. Just extend all the Trump tax cuts, some of the things that he campaigned on, like no tax for tips and some of these other issues. Get it done. One other quick thing. If he can do that and maybe get that bill by Memorial Day, and then also if the reports are correct that they're getting close to some of these major trade deals, I don't know how Robert feels about it, but I think you could see a real boom in the stock market.
All right.
So again, that is Stephen Moore, former top Trump economic advisor, a guy who literally wrote 2 books disingenuously bragging about how amazing Trump is for the economy. That's how devoted he is, publicly expressing frustration with Trump's legislative accomplishments. Why haven't these tax cuts and other things already occurred? It's not that complicated. He's panicking. And to watch him panic and also try to walk that tightrope where he doesn't lash out at Trump is hilarious. So again, it says something that these people feel bold enough to call out Trump in this way. And now I want to play this other segment. Again, Sandra Smith, MAGA Fox News host, recounting this brutal Fox News poll, which you can tell she's not happy about.
This is President Trump's job approval rating on taxes. 38% approve, 53% disapprove. This is Fox News polling. 38% on the economy approve, 56% disapprove, 33% on inflation. We know this was huge in the election, 59% disapprove. But Scott Bessent had a very important message as the 100-day mark approaches on all of that. Listen from this morning.
We've got a three-legged stool here. It's trade, it's tax, it's deregulation. President Trump has come out of the blocks roaring. And I think this is something new for the American people. We're going to continue to make the U.S. the best destination for capital in the world.
And that something new might be, the short-term pain people are feeling reflected in the polls. But will they hang in there, Robert, to see what is promised as...
So let's stop right there, because again, that was the second thing. We're about to lead into the third thing, which is Robert Wolf, a former economic advisor to President Obama, again, getting to educate Sandra Smith and Stephen Moore and the MAGA viewers at Fox News that Trump's tariff policy has been disastrous. But you can see it. She begins just with her head in her hand. She doesn't like this. You can hear it in her glum tone of voice. This reluctant acceptance that Donald Trump is not popular, his tariff regime is not popular, and his 100 days, even if you personally find them successful, are not popular. And again, I use the contrast to President Biden. President Biden, of course, at this point in his presidency was much more popular than Donald Trump, but I digress. The fact of the matter is, I thought that Biden, especially domestically, was an extremely successful president, even though he left office with terrible approval numbers, right? So you can still support a thing while acknowledging that a thing is also unpopular, that you still support a person while acknowledging the person is unpopular. And I think this is where MAGA finds itself. It's like, if you have any shred of honesty, even if you still support Donald Trump, as Sandra Smith and Stephen Moore do, you should at least have the wherewithal to acknowledge that there's a failure of messaging on Trump's part. There's a failure of persuasion and communication on Trump's part, because this is objectively unpopular. And you can even hear it, I guess, where she started to tick up there at the end. Maybe this is just like short-term pain manifesting in the polls. These tariffs might be good, right? Robert Wolf shuts down.
Long-term gain.
Yeah, let me be quick here. I mean, one, Steve knows a tariff is a tax on the consumer. Yes, it brings revenues, but it's not a tax cut to the consumer. So that's just not true. And Steve's actually written about that, as has Kevin Hassett. With respect to the three-legged stool, I think with short-term pain, you're seeing it in the polls. People don't know really what's going on. Things are actually, some prices are going up, some are going down. This is not actually the immediate, great economy that the president spoke about. Actually, half the economists thinks we're going into a recession.
Damn, right? Half the economists, including many conservative ones, including top Trump allies who are not necessarily economists, but like, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and others believe that we are effectively already in the midst of a recession. So again, three things back to back. Stephen Moore admitting that the Trump administration is incompetent, at least legislatively. Number two, Sandra Smith's, mild panic attack about trying to, having to relay this bad news with respect to the Fox News poll as a predicate to the panel conversation. And then number three, the other great thing is Robert Wolf coming in like, yeah, this tariff policy sucks. No, it's not a tax break. It is, in fact, a tax increase, no matter how Trump wants to pretend otherwise. And also, we're not seeing the immediate benefits that Trump promised us. And I got one more clip for you, actually, of Robert Wolf, since we're talking about him. But I also want to remind you that earlier today, Donald Trump was also talking about, I guess it was yesterday, that Donald Trump was also talking about, that this is going to be a bonanza, that these tariffs are going to be a bonanza for the American people. Quote, when tariffs cut in, many people's income taxes will be substantially reduced, maybe even completely eliminated, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Quote, focus will be on people making less than $200,000 a year. Also, massive numbers of jobs are already being created. With new plants and factories currently being built or planned, it will be a bonanza for America. The External Revenue Service is happening. So Trump continues to insist, despite the fact that an increasing number of Americans don't believe him, certainly a healthy majority, but that number is increasing. They don't believe that tariffs are, a tax cut for the American people, because of course they're not. Of course they're not. As Robert Wolf says, even Stephen Miller, I keep saying Stephen Miller, Stephen Moore. Stephen Miller is the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, who is in many ways Trump's policy architect, particularly with regards to immigration and deportations. Miller is the guy who wrote those two cultish Trump books about the Trump economy. Even Moore knows that this just isn't true, that Wolf is right and tariffs are not a tax cut, they are a tax increase. And Trump has effectively created the single biggest tax increase on the American people, certainly in peacetime, if not in totality, in the history of the United States. But speaking of Robert Wolf, he was also recently on Fox, again, because he frequently appears and spars with the more conservative people. And this is before the even more recent brutal polling against Trump. And Wolf was talking about how Trump is underwater on the economy.
I will say is she's talking about health care. She's talking about Medicaid. She's talking about Social Security. Whether we think this is resonating or not, currently President Trump is 10 points underwater in the economy, and she's out talking about it. Like I said, not where I stand, but I think she's resonating more than we're giving her credit for.
And he's talking about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and whether or not she is the future of the Democratic Party. And what he's saying is even though he's more centrist, more liberal than she is, he recognizes that Trump is extremely vulnerable on these issues, and she's speaking competently on those issues to appeal to the American people. And I totally agree. So, yeah, I just love that. That segment was so great. Again, Stephen Moore just calling out the Trump administration. Why aren't you guys getting this done? It's not that complicated. Number two, Sandra Smith having a very quiet meltdown about her own network's brutal poll against Trump. And number three, Robert Wolf, liberal economist, former economic advisor to President Obama, coming in and laying down the facts like, yeah, these tariffs suck, that Trump's lying about them. No, it's not going to deliver what he's promised. And maybe more people should be honest about that. Maybe indeed. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.